Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bats. Whoop, hang on. Before we welcome anybody back, I better hit the record button on the thing, because we actually want to record the audio of the podcast. So, hey everybody, welcome back to the Back to Bits podcast. My name is John Meadows. With me, as always, is D-Pad Danny. What is going on, Mister Danny?
Oh, not too much, man. How are you doing?
I am okay. That's about all I can say at this point. I've
Well,
spent
that's about the best you can hope for some days.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't work today. I sat around and did nothing but watch House committee stuff in the state of West Virginia, which was angering and boring, and me yelling at a television set for 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, I'm
but,
sure.
Whatever. It's all
Nah,
fun. It's all good.
adult stuff.
Yeah, adult
Grown-up
stuff. Adult grown up stuff that I don't want to have to deal with, but
Yep.
you got to at some point in your life. I
Yeah.
guess it all can't be fun and games anymore.
hmm
As much as I want it to be. But at any rate, we're not here to talk about things like that. I'm here to talk about games and gaming stuff. I don't know about anybody else. But
Absolutely.
if you notice by the title, we're actually going to be talking some E3 retro news stuff, which is kind of cool. There was actually quite a few announcements at E3 last week, so I thought we'd do the whole show E3. But first, like we always do, I want to talk about any kind of pickups or any new cool crap we retro wise we got. So Danny, I'm going to let you go first because I actually got one of these too, even though it's not really quote unquote retro. It is, but it isn't.
Sure. First, yeah, Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove. Physical
Yep.
copies finally shipped. I finally got mine in about 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah,
I
got
haven't
mine in,
played
too.
it yet.
I haven't either.
I'm actually going to stream it with a buddy online on the Switch. We're going to do a co-stream. He's played it a little bit, but I haven't. But it's a really cool package. It's got a nice manual. It's a small manual, but it's pretty thick.
Yeah,
It's got a lot of information for that tiny little manual.
of all the limited run games that I have with manuals in them, that one is probably it's a tie between it and Cosmic Heroine. It had a big instruction book too. I haven't actually pulled it out to see which one was bigger, but yeah, I was not expecting that Toe Jam and Earl instruction book to be that big.
It's got to be like 30 pages or so.
At
It's
least.
like a legit manual.
Yeah.
Despite again its size, it's a little dinky little thing, but it's got a lot of information in there.
Yeah.
And what's cool is the slip cover is reversible, the art, so you can like flip it around, and it's actually mocked up with the Sega Genesis style with the black background with like the vector lines. It's really neat looking.
Matches my and I don't know, I sent you a picture of it. I had the promo thing I talked about on here that Eric bought and sent to me. It matches that
Right.
exactly, so it's like, oh, that's awesome. So
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
yeah, plus it won't be the only black spined Switch game I have on my shelf
right.
now. I only had one, and that was the Darksiders misprint. So
Yeah.
so now I'll have two, so it won't look too odd.
Other than that, for retro stuff, I went to my local game store and they've had a copy of Impossible for the TurboGrafx 16 for about a month and a half now. And I keep looking at it and I was like, I kind of wouldn't mind taking that home because, it's a TurboGrafx 16 game, which you don't see around very often.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's Impossible, which is supposed to be a really bad game. So I was like, I'll think about it, and I always passed on it. And I went in there about a week ago or so, and it had made its way to the 20 or the 50% off bin, and I'm like, yeah, that price is right for me to pick that up. So I got it for half price, which was really cool. The manual, unfortunately, has water damage and is like a solid piece of cardboard now, where everything's stuck together.
But as long as it has no mold on it, that's always
right. And the game looks fine. I haven't tested it, but I'm sure it runs fine. Yeah. And again, it was like $20. I mean, $20 for a TurboGrafx game. You can't pass that up, you know.
And it's hard to come across those anyway. So.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like TurboGrafx 16 and Sega Saturn are like the two that you just never see. I think I see more 3DO games out in the wild, ironically enough, than I do for TurboGrafx and Saturn games. And another thing I picked up was I saw a copy of ActRaiser 2, which is only the second copy I've seen in about, I want to say, the last year and a half. And the same store, they had a copy in a while ago, and the label was kind of weathered, and the pins were kind of greenish, where it looked like
Mm-hmm.
they started to go bad. I kept passing on it. I think it was like $40 at the time. I kept passing on it, but I was like, it's one I'd really like to have just to have it. And then they sold it, and I hadn't seen one since. And
Yeah.
so they got a copy in with a decent label. I mean, it's a little bit peeled up on the top label, but otherwise, it's got a nice sheen. It's not water damaged or anything,
Yeah.
and the pins are really nice. And apparently, the price has gone down since then. So, I mean, because I got it for
Oh
$23 again,
wow.
as opposed to like the 35 or 40 that I would have paid the first time for
Right.
a less than satisfactory copy. So I was pretty excited about that. But that's pretty much it for my retro pickups. I
It's
haven't really been spending a whole lot lately.
Well, I haven't been spending a ton. There just hasn't been, honestly, there hasn't been a ton to buy.
Hmm.
I was on the road, so I did go back to the shops that I stopped at, the first half of my trip because I knew I was going to be
Hmm.
able to stop one more time. And
Right.
so I did that, and I picked up a Cloudmaster for the Master System.
That one looks
Just
fun.
complete. Yeah, it looks really cool. I knew there was a game called Cloudmaster. I had never played it. I didn't know what it was, or what kind of game it was or anything. But I'd
Hmm.
heard of it. So when I saw it and it was complete and it was a decent price, I went, "Yep." In fact, it was $30. I mean, I think that was
That's
pretty.
not bad.
It was pretty fair for a complete copy.
Sure.
I haven't played it yet. I haven't even cleaned it or anything like that. I mean, it looks fine, but it looked like a fun game. I didn't realize that it was like almost like a shooter. A
Yeah, yeah.
shooting
It's
game.
a horizontal scrolling
Yeah.
shooter.
So and I always enjoy those. I'm not good at them, but I do enjoy playing them. So
Same.
And the other one that I got was Alex Kidd in High Tech World. The only reason I got it was because I want all the Alex Kidd games, even though really that's
Sure.
not a Alex Kidd game. It's
Yeah, and
the whole story behind it was originally called something else in Japan, and when they brought it over to America, they took the character out and they put Alex Kidd in its place and
yeah,
called it
it was
Alex
called
Kidd.
like like Crazy Arcade or something like
Something like
that.
that. I really can't
Something
remember
along
how
those lines.
can't remember how the story went. Or
Sure.
what the game was called right off the top of my head. But that's really the only reason why I bought it was because I only need one more Alex Kidd game now, and I think that's Lost Stars or something like that is the only one that I
Hmm.
need. I think I've got all the other ones now, and
I have zero.
well, I kind of went. I've been on a kick trying to find Master System games,
Sure.
and like here locally, like right now, there's a guy that's got two. He's got Altered Beast and Afterburner, brand new, factory sealed,
Oh wow.
and he wants like $80 for them. Together, and it's like I
Well,
can't.
that's
I mean,
well
that's a fair price on a
yeah, that
brand
seems
new
pretty
seal.
fair.
It's fair price, but at the same time, it's like I don't know how I want to spend $80 on them, and then I'd be
Mm,
afraid. I don't know if I really want to open them or not because to have that
exactly.
factory seal on them, and
Mm,
Sega Master System games, you could pick out factory seal and you can pick out reseal pretty easy because I remember Master System games had a very thick, hard plastic
yeah.
shrink wrap on it. It was, and the edges were melted. And I just look at the pictures. I'm like, yeah, that's factory sealed, absolutely. So,
Yeah, I've seen a few in real life as well. But
yeah.
you're right. The plastics, it's thick. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
crumple. It's not like crumpleable. It's more like a
No.
sheet.
Yeah, it's more like a sheet. Yeah, it's hard to
Yeah.
describe because I can't think of anything right off the top of my head that still has it like that. Maybe when you go to Costco and you get a 3 jars of something, and it's that kind of plastic. It's
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah.
of it's thicker, but it's that kind of plastic. It's
That's
not.
a good comparison.
Yeah, it's not the shrink wrap kind. But that I remember that from when I was a kid.
Hmm.
That's the last time I've seen a sealed Master System game was when I was like
Right.
12 years old. But yeah, if I'm watching it, so if he comes down a little bit on it, I might, depending on how work goes, I might pick it up. I also got in the mail two brand new bitmap games. I got the Sega Master System.
You mean books?
Or books? Did I say books? The Sega Master System visual Contempium with the slipcase. All the it's a little tight because I put where'd it go? Oh, I put it in the book. It come with 3D glasses
Yep.
because it has some pages. Some of the pages in there are of the 3D games. This book is awesome. I mean, this one is one of my favorite ones. I love this series that Bitmap puts out anyway. This one is one of my favorite ones. It's just, well, because I'm a Master System fan and I grew up
Right.
with the Master System, so this is really cool. And they sent me this one for review, and they also sent me, if I can get it back down in its cool black slipcase, they also sent me the CRPG book. This is nothing but computer games, computer role playing games, and they're all in order from years released. So it starts out in, let's see, what's the first, 75 to 79, and then it goes all the way to, I want to say, 2018? I
Nice.
don't remember. It's relatively new. It's got Witcher, it's got Elder Scrolls, South Park, Stick of Truth. However long ago some of those were released, I don't remember trying to find the page with the year on it. I can't find it, but yeah, this book is really interesting because there's a bunch of RPGs that one I have never seen pictures of, much less played because in the 70s and early 80s I didn't have a computer, so I
Right.
couldn't play those games. But yeah, this one was a surprise because I was under the impression that this was a limited run or a limited release from them, but apparently they put it back in print for anybody. They're both $30 a
Nice.
piece. Well, I say $30 a piece, €30 or £30 a piece.
Hmm.
Says US 39, so it's must be a little different. Yeah, 39.99 is what it says there for US.
I
But
wouldn't mind picking up that Master System one. One of my buddies got it and he was showing it off on stream, and that thing is sharp,
oh
man.
yeah, it is. I mean, this series of books, they have sent me the NES, the Super NES, and now the Master System one. These books I highly, highly, highly recommend. These are so good.
Right.
It's just the art in them. The pictures are great. They have off the wall accessories, controllers and stuff that you didn't know existed for
Hmm.
this game. It's got this cool. Probably doesn't show up on the stream, but it's got this cool little moving cover. But yeah, the little 3D pages are awesome. It's got these huge pullouts of what game is this? This is
Is that
Zillion.
Zillion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's got this huge 4-page, 8-page, you know, huge of a whole level of the game, which is really really cool. Yeah, I love it, and I'll have a review up if that wasn't enough of a review for you. A written review up on the site by the weekend. I'm hoping to before we leave. So, but yeah, these compendiums are just they're awesome. They're awesome. They're worth every penny. And I'm not sure. I know they're not. I know Bitmap has a U.S. store now, so you can get them a little faster. I don't know if these are on there yet because, like I said, they just came out like
Right.
Monday. I think they released the 17th or something like that. Backers got theirs early, and then reviewers got. I got mine the day before they came out. I think, or this Friday before they came out, something like that. But hey, Blue Jay, what's going on? He's in the Twitch or in the YouTube chat. Just now saw it. But yeah, I mean, these books are really really cool. Highly recommend both of them, especially if you're a PC RPG nut. That one is interesting to flip through from 75 all the way to now and see the evolution. From page to page of games.
Right.
Ultima One to Elder Scrolls Skyrim. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
got your text based to these super immersive
mhm.
3D environments and everything in between.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. But those books are definitely worth it. I highly, highly, highly recommend the Bitmap books. They are outstanding. So, with that, we will get into the news. And the way I divided this up, I divided it up by the companies making it. So I figured we'd start off with everybody's favorite Hyperkin first. Everybody loves Hyperkin. They have such a great following in the community, and
Oh yeah.
if you look at this, in the show notes on the website, a lot of them are just links to tweets because that's all they have. They have nothing on their site about it. They haven't sent out any PR emails or anything like that. So the first thing they showed off on their Twitch or on their tweet was a wireless N64 controller. They're calling it the Admiral. It kind of looks like the Hori controller, kind of, sort of.
It looks a lot like the Hori, just a little bit bigger, I think. It looks like the buttons are a little bit more spaced out.
Yeah, the buttons looked a little more spaced out. It looks like almost a cross between the Hori 64 and a Wavebird, almost. The lights on the bottom with the
right.
It does have a huge receiver on it. The receiver is big because that's where you plug your memory card into the receiver.
Which is pretty neat, but then that kind of nullifies any possibility of using a rumble pack if that's your cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that it doesn't have rumble in it. I'm guessing it doesn't have a slot in it for a rumble pack, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I never saw a back to it, so... But sure. I would assume that that's what it is, unless they have one in the controller, and then, because some people like to have a rumble pack and a memory card without swapping, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
It does make it look that front of the N64 almost ridiculous with a vertical rectangle
a little bit
smacked right on the front of it. But I don't know how
it looks like it has. It looks like it also has a micro SD card slot in it. If you look at it on the left side, maybe for extra memory card space.
It could, and there's a switch there too. So I'm guessing that maybe you could use the SD card for game saves, and the switch goes between the SD card and the card slot. I don't know.
It's possible, but it also might be to switch between if you have two of them plugged into the same console. Because if you look at the bottom of the controller, it has two lights.
Yeah, it does. That's right.
So I'm wondering if it's like a player 1, player 2 sort of thing. And if that's the case, then they kind of limit it to where if somebody wants 4 of them at a time, this is just speculation, of course, based off of the picture, that would be hard to do.
Right. And who knows if this is even the final.
Right, it could just be prototype.
A prototype or an early draft. They, like I said, they didn't really go into detail about it. They just on their Twitter feed, they just, hey, look, wireless N64 controller. The one thing that I thought was really, really cool from Hyperkin was the Hyperblast HD, which is the first light gun compatible with Duck Hunt that works on an HD TV.
Right, that's interesting stuff that they were able to figure out how to get that to work when that's been a huge hindrance for anyone wanting to use light games on classic consoles on a modern TV.
Yeah, I'm real interested in that. I know there were several workarounds with a flash card and a modified ROM or something like that. So to see actually and all it is an adapter that plugs in. And it looks like the gun is wired to the adapter, I think. I can't tell if that wire is on the adapter or if that wire is on the gun so people won't walk off with for security. Right. But it has pretty much what looks like a NES Zapper. There's just a blue and orange color. The color scheme is kind of But yeah, I mean, if that'll work on more than just Duck Hunt, which I wouldn't see why it wouldn't work on, Hogan's Alley or any of the other light gun games, I might actually pick this up, especially since I'm using my RetroTink 2X a little more than I am my PVMs at the moment, just for convenience. Sure. And depending on the price of it, they really, like I said, once again, they just kind of tweeted this out and said, hey, we've got this, hey, we've got that, with no prices, no anything. And they have yet to say anything on the PR side of any of that. So it will be interesting, though, to see what the cost is. Normally, Hyperkin stuff is very affordable and reasonably priced. So I would say that would probably maybe fall in the $30 to $40 range. If I had to guess with the wireless controller, I'd say it's probably more in the $40 to $50 range, but I could be wrong.
Sure.
I may even have it cheaper than that. But
my concern with that is like it's cool. Don't get me wrong; it's cool that they were able to figure the technology out to make it to work on HD TVs, and I'm sure there's lots of people that would appreciate that. But when you really break it down, I mean, how many games are compatible with the light gun, maybe 10, maybe 15 at the most.
I can
And I
think of
mean, how many
4.
people are really, that's what I'm saying. And how many people are really clamoring to play those
Yeah.
games to justify, spending an extra $40 just to play Duck Hunt? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Yeah.
it's cool, but I'm just wondering, and I'm sure there is a market there for it, but I'm just wondering how big of a market there
Yeah,
is.
I don't know. Yeah, that is a good question. I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Duck Hunt is usually the one that everybody wants.
Right.
That's the one everybody was always clamoring for with the
Sure.
with the NES. But depending on how much it is, it's like, well, is it $40 enough? Is that a lot? Is that what you'll pay for? To play a Duck Hunt if that's all you want to play.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
people will buy it, but you got to wonder if they're going to make their money back on that research and development.
Right. Yeah. And who knows? Like I said, I know there was one guy out there that was working on something. If maybe they bought his idea, maybe who
Hmm.
knows? Hypercon's not always the ones to say. How can I say this tactfully?
That
With their
they,
whole, not, I don't want to say that they've been known to steal ideas, but or steal stuff, but they have been known with the Retron 5 to use other people's emulators and sell them. So
we'll say outsource to be
yeah,
nice.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I mean, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. I
Right.
mean, but it makes you wonder when you go.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that a long time ago by somebody else, and of course,
Hmm.
they have the manpower and the money, so they could have said, well, maybe we could do that and run with the same ideas.
Or maybe they're just like, hey, we like your idea. Can we buy it
Yeah,
off of you? So we don't have to put the time and work hours into figuring it out ourselves. I
yeah.
mean,
Who knows?
who's to say? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my call. The big thing to come out of Hypercon was they introduced the first N64 clone console. Um, it's it definitely kind of looks like a mix between the N64 and a Super Famicom, I guess the way it looks.
Yeah.
It has 4 ports on the front, an on-off switch, and then a reset button. From all the reports that I have seen, they had Mario 64, Super Smash Brothers, and GoldenEye running on the system at the show.
Hmm.
They didn't say what kind of compatibility it was going to have. Metal Jesus tweeted out as that he'd talked to the representatives and they were still considering if it was going to be emulation based or if they were going to do the FMG thing. And I don't see Hypercon doing that. That's expensive. And
Hmm.
most of your Hypercon systems, with the exception of the Retron 5, most of them are $60 at the most. I mean, they're usually not super expensive.
Hmm.
I think like the Genesis one that just came out was like 40 or 50. It was pretty cheap. So I'm going to guess that the price that this is going to be emulation based. It's not going to be some fancy processor chip doing
Right.
all the work. It will be interesting to see if the emulator does do 100% or 99.9% of the library with games like Banjo Tooie, Conkers Conkers is usually one that's hard for emulators to handle.
Hmm.
But I think about me using my EverDrive, and I have not had any compatibility issues with that. And
Sure.
so, I mean, who's to say? I mean, I'm going to guess it's emulation based because they don't have a slot for the
I'd
expansion or
assume
anything
so.
like that.
Right. And unless they built it in, and that's even more hardware power
Right.
that they'd need to consider.
Yeah.
As you said, that can get kind of expensive.
It is cool. It's HDMI, so it does that. Nothing that I have read said exactly what resolution it does. I'm going to guess 720. I doubt it does 1080. Most of their stuff doesn't do 1080. It usually does 720p.
Hmm.
But there it is. Sorry, outputs at 720p. I just didn't see it. And it will be boxed with one Admiral controller. And a 3-foot HDMI cable and a 6-foot USB-C cable for power. And it supports both 4x3 and 16x9 aspect ratios.
Right.
So I mean that's cool that somebody has finally come out with an N64 clone console. Not something
Right.
that I'm really interested in. I don't play much
Yeah.
N64 anyway, so
And similar to the gun, it's like I'm sure this will do better, like because it's a
yeah.
full standalone console. But I don't know. I mean, Nintendo 64 has the weakest Nintendo library, hands
Hmm.
down, out of any console. Not to say that there's not some gems there. Everyone
Right.
remembers, Smash, GoldenEye, like you were mentioning, and there's the Mario Party games, and there are fun games on it. But I mean, when you consider that the library is like 297 games or
Hmm.
so, and it's what 70% sports, racing, and wrestling,
Yeah.
I don't know if it would definitely won't sell as well as like the Famiclones or the Super Nintendo
Right.
clones. But again, though there will be a market. It'll do
Yeah.
moderately well, I
Well,
think.
and,
But
and the N64 seems to be the console. I'm guessing it's because of the people who were that age, that were kids when that console came out, are now adults with disposable income, so they kind of want to go back to that. And you got to
sure.
the one thing you got to remember: the only way to play an N64 with either RGB SCART or the HD Retrovision cables is to have it modded. Because they didn't have RGB on there, so you have to get a chip and have it modded, which I'm having mine done right now. And then you've got the HDMI mod that you can have done to the original console, but that I want to say
Hmm.
is like $100 and very expensive to have done on top of it. So
Yeah.
if somebody's just casually a fan of the N64 and wants something HDMI that they can just slap on their TV and play without having to worry about it looking too terrible, then
Sure.
I see their audience for this. But
Right.
all that stuff's subjective anyway, because most hardcore people are going to want your regular real system on real
Hmm.
hardware and stuff like that. But it's nice that there's finally an alternative out there for the
Oh yeah,
N64.
absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure this will just open up the floodgates. We'll probably start seeing adapters
Oh, I'm
for
sure.
Retron 5 or other companies making clone N64
Right.
consoles, which I think the patent just popped went out like 2 years ago. So it seems about right. They had it ready for when the patent expired so they could have their prototype. And, I figure it'll probably be out by Christmas and,
It's possible.
stuff like that. It'd be real interesting to see if it works with an EverDrive, because I know some of the Hyperkin consoles do work with flash carts. So you think you could buy, let's say that's $60. You buy a EverDrive, which is, well, if you buy an official EverDrive, they're $200, but you could buy cheap Chinese ones for $60 that would do
Hmm.
just the same. So, you think you could have an entire collection with an N64 in 720p for less than $130. So with a
That's
wireless
about
controller.
worth.
So there's your N64 classic. Everybody that wanted one,
Yep.
congratulations. Um, moving on to Retro Bit Gaming, they had quite a bit compared to Hypercom. They've just kind of started the past couple of years. They have been the ones who have done the Holy Diver releases for the NES, R-Type collection for the Super NES, and
Yeah.
this year they are going to have Metal Storm. This one's like a collector's edition with a statue and the game on an NES cartridge and a manual and a slipcase and a cardboard box and an art book and all kinds of stuff with it. It looks really,
Hmm.
really, really cool.
It really does. That statue specifically is pretty
Yeah,
sexy.
it's only $70, which I think is pretty reasonable for something like this.
Hmm.
Apparently, you're going to be able to get it at Castlemania Games and Limited Run. They're both going to have it. I'm
Well,
sure.
when you consider 70 is probably still cheaper than what you buy
Mm,
the official cart for these days. I think when I got mine, it was bouncing between 80 and 100, and I think
yeah,
it's probably still about in that range.
I think so. I haven't looked in a while, but I'm
Yeah.
sure it's probably still up there. So that looked really cool. Yeah, I really like that statue. I'm considering it.
Yeah, it would be a neat one to have. I mean, when I first saw it pop up in my feed, I'm like, Well, that's kind of obscure, but I can't say it's not cool. I
No,
mean,
yeah, I can't say it's not cool at all. One thing that Retrobit had been talking a lot about was their Genesis uh, controllers, their Sega Saturn controllers, and stuff like that. The one thing that's really been absent with them is their wireless controllers that they talked about. And they tweeted out a picture of their Sega Saturn wireless controller. It looks like the ETA on it is September 2019, and it will have a price of $34.99. That's with the controller and the receiver. That is an outstanding price for
yeah,
that.
that's not a bad price because I mean, like I said earlier, Sega Saturn stuff you just don't see very often,
Mm-hmm.
and so even the controllers can cost you like 30 plus
Mm-hmm.
dollars.
Well, what's nice about this one is it's not Bluetooth. It's actually 2.4 gigahertz, so it should be pretty low latency with no lag. So you
Hmm.
should get a pretty good response time with it. This one's one I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this, and I've been waiting for the Dreamcast one, which we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, when September rolls around, I gotta have one of these. I don't care if it's see-through blue. I don't care if it's black. I don't care if it's white. I'm going to buy one.
That translucent blue looks really sharp, though. I
Really
will say
does.
that,
That's
and I'm glad. We mentioned this offline, but I'm really glad that they went with the Model One design for
I
the
am too.
controller because the Model Two design is it's sorry, it's crap by
Yeah.
comparison.
Yeah, it is. They also had the Genesis controller as well. It's a six
Mhm.
button. It's 2.4 gigahertz as well. It's $29.99. And there's launch colors: slate gray,
Yep.
black, and clear blue. So it'll have all
Yep.
those too, which is really cool to go along with everybody else's. Mine, I have an original one modded with the DIY 8-bit do, so I'm good with that. Which I
Right.
just found out that my Game Gear has finally got fixed, and the Bluetooth adapter will work with it. So
Nice.
I'm like, ooh, wireless Game Gear on the television. Well, sign me up. But yeah, so they got that one coming out, and of course, Retrobit had to show off their new wireless mini N64 controller as
Which
well.
is essentially the same thing.
It is. It is almost
Uh,
exactly the same thing in every way, shape, and form. I'm trying to
very
pause
similar, at least.
the thing here so I could see.
It's a
39.
very
No, go
no.
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
I was just going to say it looks like it has an extremely glossy finish, though, compared to Hyperkin's matte finish.
Yeah, it really does. But who knows if that's the final finish on it? I hope it's not that glossy because oh my gosh, that's a pain to
Yeah,
have to
that'll
mess
be
up.
hard to keep clean.
Yeah, it. Let's see. It's 2.4 gigahertz as well. It's an N64 and it has a USB dongle, so you can use it on a computer as well. Launch colors, smoke, and I'm guessing that's red. I can't read it. It says ETA September 2019, and it's $39.99. So very affordable price there as well. So very
Yeah.
cool.
See, and these are really neat, but for me personally, wireless is not a huge draw because I have a very small game room. Like the only systems I have trouble with are like the Turbo Graphics because that's a short cord by default.
Right.
But see, with all the redesigns where they all look very similar to the Hori Pad, I'd rather just spend the extra $20 or so and get a Hori Pad.
Yeah.
Honestly, but that's
Yeah.
again, that's just me.
Right. Well, and they even have those Hori almost exact Hori pads that are wired that just came out.
Mhm.
That are
Right.
$30 or 25 or whatever they are. So me, I prefer wireless just because it's one less cable I have to worry about. Now, granted,
Sure.
I don't have to set. I don't have a small gaming room right now. My couch is in the middle of my gaming room only because I'm too far away from the TV to use my VR. You have to be within 5 to 7 feet of the TV, and I'm
Hmm.
about 9 foot away, so it doesn't really pick it up. So I had to scoot the whole couch up to the middle of the room to really get a
Sure.
good VR experience. But I just like the wireless controllers, just like I said, because it used to be I liked them a lot because well, my pets would walk around, and I didn't want them yanking
Sure.
stuff off. The dogs don't come down to the gaming room that often. The cats do, but they get in everything anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's wired or wireless. They'll crawl all over it all.
Right.
But yeah, I'd kind of I just like it for the convenience of not having a wire. It's just one less wire I have to worry about. But yeah, I get the I've already got the NES, the Super NES, now the Genesis and Master System wire with wireless controllers.
Well, I mean, at this point, you might as well just go all in and complete your whole collection. I mean,
the only thing I don't have is Dreamcast, N64, and TurboGrafx, which there's really no wireless controller for PC Engine, and I don't think anybody's going to be making one anytime soon. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. We'll get to more PC Engine here in a few. So, the other thing that I put in the notes was the Metal Jesus Rocks tweet, where he actually had a picture of the prototype of the Dreamcast controller that that Retrobit is doing. Fully licensed. What's interesting about that is it has 6 buttons on the front of it.
Right.
So
you got to wonder, like, if it's going to have, like, are those going to be just, you can use the first 4 or the last 4, or is it going to be different functions on those? It's odd.
I'm guessing it's probably going to be the trigger buttons. So, like, there's a lot of fighting games on the Dreamcast.
That makes sense, right?
So maybe you have it that way, so you can have it more of a traditional arcadey setup.
Mm-hmm.
I personally would probably never use them. I don't play a lot. I have a lot of fighting games on the Dreamcast, but I don't play a lot of fighting games on the Dreamcast. It looks cool, though. I mean, it looks very much almost one-to-one of a Dreamcast controller, other than it has those 2 extra buttons on the front of it. So.
Well, and then there's the D-pad as well. Like, don't get me wrong, the D-pad on the Dreamcast controller is not great. It's kind of small and it's kind of sharp. It kind of cuts in your thumb. But it looks like what they've done is, if you can believe it, it looks like they made it worse, because it looks like they took the Xbox 360 D-pad, just yanked it off the controller and slapped it on there, which is arguably one of the worst D-pads that I've ever used.
Now that you mention it, I really didn't pay that close of attention to it, but it is a different D-pad. It almost looks like a Genesis Model 2 D-pad. That rocket with the round, because it looks a lot like the Genesis 2, and I'm not a huge fan of the Genesis D-pad, the 6-button D-pad. I'm more of the 3-button D-pad than I am the 6-button D-pad.
Sure.
Because the 6-button one, it seemed to me like it rocked too much. It was a little too loose and sensitive to me.
And that's one of the issues that I have with the 360 controller. Again, it's a great controller design overall, but that D-pad is just trash, and that's exactly what that looks like there. So it's like I said, the D-pad on the Dreamcast controller isn't perfect, but it looks like they may have changed it for the worse, honestly.
They may have.
Just at a glance.
Yeah, and it's just a prototype too. So who knows?
Right.
That is an early thing. So who knows?
Sure. And you also notice that you'll also notice that the cord is still coming out of the bottom, which is a wide complaint of a lot of people, unless it's going to be wireless,
Yeah, well, they are making a wireless version of it. I do know that. They have said that. So, I that's what interests me more with the Dreamcast controller than anything, is the wireless version of it. Because I definitely want one of those, because I actually have a Dreamcast controller with a controller extension cable going all the way from the entertainment center across the thing. I actually have a second extension cable if I need to make it longer, which I'd never do, but I have another one in waiting if I have to have it. But
sure.
But yeah, the wireless one's the one I'm hoping for. And I was one of those ones that I didn't mind it coming out of the bottom so much. It didn't bother me.
No, I thought it was kind of neat. It had the little the little slot to kind of stop it in there or whatever.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of the Master System, because the Master System has a place to put the cord under the system. If you ever notice, there's a little trough all the way that runs on the length of the bottom of the system that you can actually pull the cable out, put it under the system, and make it come out the side of the system to shorten it up if you want. So that's kind of what that reminded me of, was that little clip. But I never minded it coming out of the bottom. with the
No,
look.
I
But
just know it's a lot. A lot of people
people
complain
don't.
about it just
Yeah,
because it's an odd design. But
yeah,
when you consider the two expansion slots on the top of the controller, it's
yeah,
like how else were they
yeah.
going to do it?
Where else you gonna put it at? So
Right.
that point it made sense. But
Hmm.
but I'm all for the wireless one. That's the one I'm waiting on.
Sure.
Is the wireless one. Just some random news, not really from not a bunch of announcements from a group. Polymega had their system there. Showing it off. A lot of people came out of E3 playing that thing, saying it was really, really cool. And they have a light gun for that system as well. It's still a prototype. It looks very, very funky. It's a very funky light gun. You can definitely tell if you would take it outside that it's not a real gun.
Yeah,
It
looks
looks a
like
lot
something
like a
from a
phaser.
sci-fi movie, like a Stunner or something.
Yeah, yeah. What's cool is it works with North America, Japan, and international. It works with any of them. So, it's very, very cool. Apparently, they're going to offer different colors, a color tip on it, stuff like that. They're calling it it's technology powering the RGC01. Apparently, there's it's made by Sinden Technologies. You can go to the link in the website. The gun is going to be $100.
Yeah, that's the part I don't like. Like the
Yeah,
design looks cool, okay, well it's similar to Hyperkin's setup where it'll work on modern displays, but like $99, that's a pretty steep price.
yeah. Well, and with it all being self-contained in the gun, that's the technology part is probably what drives the price up. But
Sure.
you think about it with the Polymega though, you can use that on NES, Super NES, Genesis, uh, Master System, PlayStation One games, PlayStation or not PlayStation, Saturn games, so you can play
Hmm.
Snatcher with a light gun. It's for
Snatcher is on Sega
or
CD.
Sega CD. Sorry, I was thinking of Police Knots for the Saturn
Right.
because it can use a light gun too. But yeah, I mean that's a lot more games than just the one for the NES for sure.
Right. And
So
that's totally fair, and that may, make it a little bit of a sweeter deal for some
yeah,
people, but again, it's like, of the multitudinous games that are out there, how often are you going to be really how much time are you going to put into a light
right,
gun game to
yeah.
justify putting that kind of cost?
Yeah. Well, and plus you got to think about it. It's what $300 for the base system. They haven't said how
Hmm.
much the modules are,
Right.
and then then you got $100 light gun and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's a very very cool idea, and I'm glad it exists for sure.
Right.
I'm very interested in the Polymega. I really want to play one.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to buy one, but I definitely want to play one. It all sounds really, really sweet. So,
Right.
Konami announced the TurboGrafx 16 Mini.
Yes.
Oh, what's cool about it is it's fully. It depends on what region you're in. So,
Hmm.
Japan gets the PC Engine Mini that looks like a PC Engine.
Yep.
The EU gets the Core Graphics system,
Hmm.
which that's the one I have. I have the Japanese version of that. I want to know how small those core graphics and PC Engine systems are because
Right.
I've seen pictures of that TurboGrafx and it doesn't look much smaller than a real TurboGrafx. Maybe a little bit smaller, but not
Hmm.
like the NES and the Super NES Classic where they were like this. This one looks like
Yeah.
it's got some heft to it. So I want to know if those little ones have the small. I want to know if the minis are about that big.
Well, I mean, if they make them any smaller than, because I mean, the PC Engine in itself is already about the size of a large
Yeah, I mean
compact CD
it's
player.
tiny.
It's not very big. I
No,
mean,
yeah,
so to make it even smaller than that, it's like you got to wonder.
yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the controller they have there with the console, it looks like the console itself's only as big as like
Look,
3.5 controllers or so.
right.
So I think it will be smaller. But how small is yeah, that's going to be
Yeah.
remain to be seen.
They haven't announced all the games, but different regions will
Right.
have different games. It's not in this article, but I swear I saw somewhere that it would even have some of the games in the Japanese version were CD-based games, but I'm not 100% sure
Right.
on that.
Well, it says that the Dracula X will be on the Japanese version, which I
Oh yeah,
assume
and
they
that
mean Rondo, but which
yeah,
that is a CD,
that
and
was
it's
the CD.
unfortunate that that's listed for the Japanese one, but it's not listed for the US one. So I think they're going to stick with what was released where,
Yeah.
and also East Book 1 and 2, I believe was a disc based game as well, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
was it? Okay. See, I'm
I
not
think it
familiar
was.
enough with the TurboGrafx games. It's like I say,
Sure.
I have a PC, I have a Core Graphics, and I have the interface unit CD thing, but I have no
Hmm.
CD games for it because the drive is actually not working correctly. So I didn't even bother buying any games right now for it. And I have an EverDrive, so whatever games are on the EverDrive is what I usually play. So,
Right.
so and that doesn't have the CD games on it. So I'm not real familiar with the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine library, but this is definitely a way to get these hardcore collectors to buy all three of them,
Right.
which they have
Provided
them.
they have the proper hookups.
Yeah, which I'm sure it'll be just HDMI. So it should be compatible with everything, no matter what country
Sure.
you're in. I definitely will pick up the TurboGrafx Mini. I don't know if I'll go for the Japanese or the EU version. I might go with the Japanese one. We'll see what games are officially on it and stuff. I'll probably just go for the TurboGrafx one just because I want it to go with my NES, my Super NES. I went and bought a PlayStation 1 that they had them at Target on sale for $30, and then there was or $40, and then there was a 35% off a cartwheel coupon, so I ended up getting it for like $25. I literally pulled it
Which,
out, played it, and went, "Nah, this is crap." I even stuck
yeah,
the emulator or the thing in where it put like 500 games on it, and went, "Yeah, this runs a little better. Let me just box it up. I'm done with it," and then just set it over there with the other ones, And the
yeah, I was
Genesis will
about
be the same way when it comes. It'll,
sure. I was about to say, as far as the PlayStation one, yeah, anything more than $25, I think you're probably paying too much for it.
yep. And that's all I paid for it. So I was more than
Right.
happy to pay $25 for a item that will set on my shelf as a display piece in a box.
Sure.
yeah,
But with the cool thing with the TurboGrafx is like, when you first hear that Konami's releasing it, you're like, what? Konami?
yeah,
But then you have to remember that Konami bought out Hudson, and
yep.
they've been sitting on all these old IPs, and that's why we haven't seen like Bonk in
Forever.
freaking years.
Yeah,
But it's cool that they're actually going to start doing something with it. And who's to say? Maybe if this if it does well and more people get interested in the TurboGrafx and those franchises that just disappeared off the face of the earth that were prominent on there, then maybe we'll see some new installments.
yeah. Hopefully, if it sells well, I'm hoping the arcade collections or the collections that have come out for Castlevania. The arcade, and then Contra
Contra.
just came out, which I haven't bought the Contra one yet, but I bought the other ones. Konami just actually updated the Castlevania ones to include the Japanese music for
Nice.
the ones that were different if you played them on a Famicom with I don't know all the
Oh yeah, the Famicom disk system with the improved audio
with
or
the improved
whatever.
audio and stuff like that. You can
That's
choose on.
cool.
Yeah, I mean they're really cool collections. So with these selling well, I'm hoping that this sells well for them to say, okay, well maybe we'll start bringing back blah blah blah.
Maybe we'll start doing more stuff than just pachinko and actually
Yeah,
make good business decisions.
maybe the mob will take their gun out of my back and let me do. Oh,
Right.
that was one thing I wanted to ask you. I don't know if you saw the tweet. I didn't put it in the show notes, but did you?
For like aesthetics,
Yes,
or
it's just for aesthetics. It has nothing to do
it's
with.
still kind of neat though.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. It's really neat. I want it, but it's like at the same time, it's like, do I really want to pay to import it just to go look how pretty this looks? But
Right.
it was definitely cool to see. So. The last thing that I put in the show notes is actually not a E3 announcement. This was just announced, I think, yesterday. Is the Mega SD? It's pretty much essentially a flash cart for Sega CD games. It is it's not. It emulates the optical drive. It's FPGA emulation, so it's kind of like your game systems like the Analog NT that it has a chip inside it that it says, "Hey, I'm a Sega CD, so I'll run like a Sega CD." It
Right.
just plugs into your Genesis. It'll work on a Model 1, a Model 2. It'll even work on a Model 3. I saw a video of it running on a Model 3 today.
Will it work in the 32X add-on?
That I don't know. I haven't seen or heard anything about that yet. Apparently, this was from Retro RGB. He will have a video out tomorrow with full everything about it. They just didn't have it ready to release yet. Because
Sure.
he's actually been messing around with them. What's cool is it also acts as a region-free flash cart, so it'll do Genesis, 32X games. It will also do Sega Master System games with FM sound on the Genesis.
Nice.
So it's pretty much a EverDrive on steroids, is what it is. Because even with an EverDrive,
for just about every Sega home console.
yeah, it does everything from Master System, Genesis, 32X. That's something that the EverDrive does, but it does not do like FM modulation on the Sega Master System game, so you actually have to have an adapter on there to do it.
Gotcha.
But this one has it all built into it. Apparently, it even works on a Nomad. They ran it on a Nomad, so you can play Sega CDs on a Nomad, which is pretty cool.
That's neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really, really cool. The only problem with it is it's $260 American.
Consider that this is probably going to be the cheapest way to play Snatcher, aside from your buddy who does the discs.
Yeah, Cliff making the repro.
Right. So when you consider that, it's like, for all the different consoles that are included, I mean, you think if you were to buy a Master System flash cart and a Genesis flash cart and a 32X, if there was one, and a Sega CD flash cart, that's
Right.
what, 5 flash carts?
Well,
You got to consider $50 to $70 a piece.
Well, the way I justify it is this way: you have you go buy a Sega Genesis Model 1, 2, 3, or even a 3. You can find a 3 for $20-$30 now.
It's hideous.
Yeah, you could do a Sega CD system or Sega CD system, which usually run about $150, $200, something like that.
Yeah, depending on Model 1 versus Model 2 and the
depending
shape
Model
of
1,
it,
Model
of
2, and
course.
shape and everything. Your flash carts. I have a Genesis flash cart that does 32X, Sega Master System, and Genesis. It doesn't do, Sega CD, of course. You can get a higher one that's like the 7 that actually acts as a CD-ROM backup, or memory card for the Sega CD, but you still have to have a Sega CD and play Sega CD games. So you think about how much you have to spend to try to find games, much less or buy reproduction games like what Cliff says.
Right.
Which at $260 is a lot to swallow, but when you think about it,
You get a lot.
you get a lot for it, and
Yeah.
you literally all you have is one Sega Genesis, and you have everything from the 80s and 90s on Sega. I
Yep.
can't. This one doesn't say. Let me scroll down here. I saw on their tweet or something like that. What size SD card it went in there, and I'm trying to see here. The user manual is on here too. Battery backup cartridge. I want to say it's it's a huge size that it'll take. So you'll have plenty of room to do the entire collection of. Okay, let's see. You were asking if it would run through a 32X. Yes. Yes, it would.
I figured it would. I mean, if they made it work through the Model 1, Model 2, Model 3, that, the 32X is just kind of an extension off of that. But, these are the types of questions you got to ask, right?
It also works with the new Analog Mega SG, too. So it works with that system as well. It works with the CDX. It works with the Genesis 1, 2, and 3. It works with the Nomad. I can't find the size SD card it will take, but it will take I think it's there we go. Largest capacity 400 gigabyte SD card, which is
That's a lot of storage space.
yeah. Well, I think the entire Sega CD collection is 92 gigs. I think. I saw somebody put on there, and I have the entire NES or Master System Genesis and 32X collection on a 8 gig. So you look at that, even 128 meg or 128 gig memory card should be more than enough to hold the entire collection of everything on the Genesis, all on one cartridge.
And plenty of space left over for whatever homebrews might be introduced in the future.
Yeah. I mean, it's super cool, but man, it is super expensive.
Yeah, it'll do well though. It'll do well. Like I said, all those people that were considering getting a Genesis one or a Master System one. I mean, if you put everything all included, with everything except for Saturn and Dreamcast, I mean, that's a lot of stuff you're getting for that price.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't already have a Sega CD unit, well, I actually have two. I have a Model 1 and a Model 2. If I didn't have those two things, I had to have that Model 1.
Same.
I would highly, highly, highly consider dropping down the money for it. Just the ability to not have, because it's so hard. It's so hard to find Sega CD games locally, and a lot of them are super expensive to try to buy.
Not to mention that you'll only be dealing with a single power cable instead of three.
Right. Well, see, I have a power cable where I only deal with one anyway. It's just got 3 dongles on the end of it, so they go boop, 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 which is nice.
Yeah. I know you sent me at one point and said that they were coming back in stock, I think April of last year, and I just never got around to it.
Yeah,
it's either like $65 for it or something like that.
Something like that, 50, 60, I can't even remember now. Totally worth it though, because it's
I need to look into that again.
Yeah, it's so much easier just to have one cable with because I don't even use the original power cords for anything except the Super Nintendo and of course the N64. But the that cable does not support Super Nintendo for some reason. But I use it for my NES, my Genesis, my Master System, my TurboGrafx, because it has all those different dongles out there. So it's just one less power cord. Yeah, because when I had the Tower of Power connected before, I had an extension cable that had an end on it that had 2 plugs on this side and one on the other side, and that's all I had room for was 3 bricks.
Right.
And you talk about heat.
Yeah, currently I have my my Genesis and my 32X stay plugged in, but if I want to play Sega CD, I'll usually unplug the NES or something like that. That'll be the one I switch around.
Well, and see, and that's like with that, I don't leave anything plugged in. I don't even leave my monitors, my PVMs plugged in anymore. I plug them in when I want to use them, and then I unplug them. Just because you never know anymore with these old things, and I don't like to have a bunch of those bricks around just sucking power. And
yeah, I have all mine set up to surge protectors, so at least I know that if something happens, it won't fry them.
Right.
But my power bill has gone down a lot since we bought the new house because it's less heat and air escaping. So it's if it's a little bit extra, I'll handle it just so I don't have to plug it in every time I want to play
I had mine on power strips, and then when I want to just flip the power strip, and they all come on and stuff. But I just don't leave my systems hooked up anymore. I just don't. I have them on display over there, and then when I'll just grab it and bring it over and set it down. So. But I have the room and the availability to do it too. So,
yeah, I know.
That makes a big difference. I mean, it does. It just makes a big difference.
I gotcha.
If I was shoving them all in a closet like I was at the old place, I never had it. I didn't have room to have everything out at the old place. It was just when I wanted it, I pulled it out of the closet and hooked it up. Now I have more freedom and space to do it. So. But yeah, so that's about all the news I have. That's not a ton of news, and I know for some reason in the middle of the stream this is going to break up in 2. I lost internet connection for a minute. I don't know why. I don't know how. Me and you continued to talk, but I lost internet connection, so it'll be split up into two videos for some reason on Twitch and YouTube. I don't know why. That's been happening. It happened last week when we recorded. It actually dropped, said I was not connected to the internet. But yet, we were still talking on Discord on the internet just fine. So.
Well, at least the audio will still be good.
Yeah, the audio, you'll never know it happened, but you'll know it on YouTube because there'll be a gap of missing missing video for about 2 minutes. So.
It's okay. It'll be a part 1, part 2 sort of deal.
Yeah, there you go. It'll be fine. But so, anything else going on this week, Danny, that you want to pimp or talk about? Or I know you had yesterday. Yeah, we're doing it on a Tuesday, which is kind of an odd time. We don't usually do them on shows on Tuesdays. We usually do them on Fridays. But I'm going on vacation, so.
Well, it's Wednesday, but you know.
Oh, is it Wednesday? See, I don't even know what day of the week it is. I don't know.
No, I got you. Yeah. No, nothing new with me. You know, just, I took a hiatus a little bit from streaming for about 2 weeks, and I recently came back, and you know, business as usual. I just wanted to work on some personal projects and some YouTube stuff, and of course, you know, I don't want to get burnt out. You know, so I'm gonna take a break sometimes. But I'm back, so if y'all want to pop in, you see me streaming, and hit me a follow or whatever, I'll be playing what I play.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll be going on vacation Tuesday, a week from yesterday, so there won't be any shows from me for at least 2 weeks, because we're going to be going almost 10 days. So, and then have to turn around and go back out again later. So we'll try to get up at some point to do another show if there's anything to talk about, which we can always find something to talk about.
Oh yeah, we can always figure out some topics, pull some stuff from Twitter.
Yeah, I think we've already got topics for the next show. I forgot about that. Because we decided to do the E3 stuff. So
right.
But yeah, all right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for listening, and follow us on Twitter at back2 the number 2 bits. That way you can find out when we go live. I try to tweet out an hour or so early when we're planning a show. So you'll know exactly when we were going live, and you can come hang out in the chat with us. So,
yep.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot, and we will catch you next time.
Take care.